Ta-da.
How are you?
I'm doing well, Peter.
You had a good session with your crew down in New Jersey.
I did. It's really interesting when you just not unlike these discussions, but getting pulled out of your environment, going somewhere new, being able to disconnect and really just focus on things that help you grow.
Yeah,
Get that different thinking, being around people who complement your thinking and just figure out the gaps you have or what's holding you back, working forward, developing those relationships to increase impact and and then process it all, which happened on the 9 hours of driving on the way back, where probably two-thirds of it was in silence and leaving myself a lot of voice notes, and now digesting those, processing those, catching up with things, and moving forward. So there's a lot of things I'm absolutely hard line in the sand. By the end of September, I want out. So it's a matter of going with the 80% solution and tweaking it later, but it has to get out. And a lot of the conversations I had fed into those ideas are just inspired me more and sharing things, getting traction in other areas and other calls to have over the next few days to just wrap up what came out of it. So,
nice. That's wonderful. And did you find any like glaring blind spots that you weren't any of those aha moments?
um, yeah, I'll go over my notes from it. I've got it. I've got my business meeting notes, and then I've got my
Yeah,
professional development
personal.
learning
Yeah,
notes. So two different things. The key thing for me, I think, is just I get in the way of myself in terms of, oh no, that's not fully thought out, or this. There's times that it matters, and there's times when it doesn't. And focusing on getting things out, and it's easy if I decide to make it easy, just the mindset and
yeah.
reminding that. So one thing was really, what can I grab onto to just remind myself of it? And so it's dancing in the rain and move faster.
Yeah.
Second thing is really um lean. Yeah, again, another a related theme is be detached from the outcome, give it my best, and have faith in everything what I do,
Yeah.
what I already know in terms of my market or the market. And right, I think those mindsets were the biggest things. And for me right now is like you guys, moving faster in terms of who are those teammates and being clear in that, which is what I wanted to complete by the end of this month, which includes um I think a big part of me over the last several months was I've got different things happening, and there's an umbrella strategy which I needed to define and create the metrics so I can move to automation and have a clear process book, rule book, to delegate, to train, to agentify if I want, which has been created more or less. So now I can move faster. So
Do you
the
know what I love? Do you know what I love about that is that you're basically saying that you need to be your own chief operating officer and it's interesting how you're so good at that for everyone else, but when it comes to your own work, the tool belt hits the ground, and it's interesting because everything you're saying has nothing to do with business and everything to do with personal development.
you're absolutely right, and I
Yeah,
see this in even say organizing, helping people move or organizing, no problem. Very clear.
yeah,
My place, no luck. What I can
yeah,
do
yeah.
for clients and others versus what I do or where I hit that resistance for myself, that you nailed it. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You got nothing left for yourself.
And yeah, and that's I was telling this to my lady friend of just the decision fatigue because I'm
Yeah.
doing, making decisions and leading CEOs and other companies. At the end of the day, I and that's the other piece of when I have that energy to do that sort of work and realizing I am, instead of just constantly going at it, really setting boundaries for myself and dedicating during the week 3 hour work blocks to just that work. So that the thinking on the
Yeah.
drive was really useful just to break down
Nice. That
work.
sounds like it was a good use of your time to go down there.
Yeah.
The other thing that, and I can totally relate to, and I realize how much I enjoy it, is that quiet time on the drive when those thoughts come to your mind and you wish there was like a full-time recorder in your head. And when you have one of those thoughts, you can just like push a button and it records the last 30 seconds or whatever that, but yeah, I get that from when I go on walks.
Yes.
I'll go on a walk and then I'll start like, riffing in my head on something and I'm like, oh, that's awesome.
Well, that's true. I think we briefly touched on this before, and I asked you when that hit, and at the 20 for me, it's a 25-minute mark
Yeah, yeah.
of walking and then just letting go, and then all of a sudden you've given yourself the time and space, and all these things start flooding in. It's disconnecting. We just got too
And
much.
are those events, is that a yearly thing or a quarterly thing? When's
This
the,
this specific event in Long Beach Island with this unblinded community is
yeah,
annual event. They have quarterly events
okay.
or they've got one happening in Newark next month, and otherwise they do have more frequent ones. But this one especially is a bit different than the rest, and which is why I made a point. I would not miss this one.
Yeah, it sounds like you could do these a few times a year.
There are people I've grown with over the last few years, and just the serendipitous path that led me into this is just that serendipitous. And um, over the last couple of weeks, just as well feeling really not able to relate to people in my day to day life because no one's living what I do. And if you ask any my friends or family what I do, no one can no one can tell you what I do.
Yeah, right, right.
And just for fun this weekend, I'm going to ask friends like, what do you think I do, and just see what they respond.
How
Um,
many people would be at that event?
this was about 100 people.
Okay, there's a picture on their website where it looks like there's a couple thousand people.
They have big events. So, for example, there's one recently with Kevin O'Leary. So, Sean Callaghy is the lead of this organization, and he was on stage. They had an event with Kevin O'Leary, and I'm forgetting David Goggins. So that happened last month. Next month, there's an event in New Jersey, in Newark, and there's Gary Vaynerchuk and Charlie Sheen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Right on.
So this community and the impact they're creating is starting to or has accelerated tremendously.
Yeah. And are you part of is there like like a smaller group that you become part of if you join it?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
there's different tiers of membership and privileges, what you do, and even I feel like I'm the Honda Civic next to the Range Rovers.
Right, right. They want more money if you want to. They want more money if you want to get out of the Honda.
And we're at just um the level the others I'm surrounded with play at, or the impact they're making, and their level of success, which is it's nice to be surrounded by those kind of people, right? Never be the biggest house on the street type of
Mm.
thing. And sharing after being in this group for 3 years now, and there's 9 of us that shared a house in Long Beach Island, which was a really
Oh, nice.
good way because you come back from your days, you share what you're doing in your own world, business, personally, and then being able to just exchange ideas and collaborate. So a lot came out of that.
Wow, you really get a lot out of it. That's awesome.
I do. I do. Yeah. And it's not, for example, I've never been to a Tony Robbins event, and there's a lot of people I run into who have been to Tony Robbins. Have either of you been to a Tony Robbins event?
I have not.
And I had, until 3 years ago, this world of personal and professional development was completely foreign to me. And then
Right.
uh, just listening to the people that have experienced different things and what works or what it's good and not good in different places, and then what brings them to unblinded, for example, is you go to a Tony Robbins event, you're pumped up, blah blah blah, 4 days of intensity, and then you're thrown back into the wild without any accountability support or peers to learn with, collaborate with, bounce ideas off of it. And so this
Right.
space isn't like that. There's a rigorous cycle of curriculum. Every quarter focuses on a different topic. So if it's influence mastery, process mastery, personal, with the process self mastery, and then marketing and sales process. So going through that cycle and just really getting that hammered into you with weekly multiple classes during the week to attend and do everything is quite a bit, but it's all there for you. And I've seen, I haven't been great at absorbing and applying things as well as I've seen others do, and watching them accelerate at the pace they've done is mind blowing. But
Nice.
the
And
caveat
I
is
go ahead.
that the product having, the key thing is being able to have something you can reach people faster and have a greater impact if you've got something that's canned, that's productized in some way. So
Yeah, yeah.
that that's the reason why I wanted to get clear on what I, the first half of this year was getting clear on the pain I solve, um how it's done, who I want to do it with, and then now moving into that productization. And so the last 3 to 4 months of this year are the beginning of that inflection point, and then seeing how to collaborate with wonderful people like you who are, have that wisdom, have the relationships, have the desire and the same values.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that. Like the real value in these sort of things is that, I think about your time renting that house. Like it's hard enough to connect with humans these days. Everything in society is kind of forcing us out of community and into the individual. And the reason I think about this right now is I was at a birthday party the other night, and it was a small gathering. There's only 12 people, but like there was half a person I wanted to interact with out of 12 people, and it was kind of like, is this because of maturity, age, like why do, couples, like there's no single women, like what was it that just kind of turned me off of that sort of, and then I started to think about it and I thought, well, they're just not, we have nothing in common, like they're just a group of humans, but so for you to go and have a group that you can really relate to, and if you do befriend some of those people, which you have, they're already kind of coming at you, from the same level or whatever. And yeah, so I don't think I would have said that 15 years ago, but at this point I'm like, yeah, I totally get part of the reason you want to join these groups. It's just because there's a pre-vetted group of like minds that you can connect into.
And that's exactly it. And meeting one of the guys I met 3 years ago, is an ex-US fighter pilot, and we were both at that point of trying to figure out what we want to do when we grow up. Had similar
Yeah.
backgrounds, under just, there's so many things that we're aligned on, and have become really good friends. He's in Florida. We communicate regularly, as I do with others in that group. Most of them are, if not, I think I'm one of the very few Canadians, but I
Right.
stay more in touch with them than I do with the people that are geographically and physically closer to me because I have more in common with them. So really,
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, unless you go back to working in the bureaucracy, right?
which even
I'm
there,
sh-
I didn't fit in. I did
that's
not.
what I mean. Like, I'm sure Ottawa isn't really that isn't your tribe.
My team. I felt
Yeah,
I this really I developed great teams. I love my teams. My peers were different. They weren't driven to lead well and get value for money. They just wanted to
yeah,
get the next promotion and
right, right.
do as little as possible and definitely not innovate because that's risk and work. And who wants that?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's not those aren't your peeps. So what can I help you with?
Well, that's exactly where I see the post-secondary institution initiative with. I want to really
Put
um
that out.
and this is cool because as I was thinking it out, because it all relates to that overarching integrated stewardship framework and building out the three pilots. So I wanted to come up with different options. Now it's a matter of packaging it up and sharing that with you to poke holes in it and run with it.
Nice.
If that's fun for you in terms of that chief entrepreneur officer and getting IP out into industry and industry providing feedback to these institutions in terms of how to shape our human capital so it serves the market. And that being the beginning of that path towards all the other things for economic sovereignty.
Yeah, and I think the alternative is not working, right? I mean, there was an article about a guy that had been, you know, getting big consulting dollars from universities to tell them to do, you know, layoffs and mergers and acquisitions and like stuff that wasn't really helpful to, so yeah, it's an interesting time for post-secondary to rethink, the business model without destroying the workforce, and I see this too often now where people are using outdated management strategies. It's like, okay, let's start with, we're not going to lay anybody off, but we're going to reorganize it to make it more, valuable. As I like to say, it could start with something as simple as everyone starts wearing name badges with their hometown on them. It's like, it sounds crazy, but you know, it might take that just to get people to think about being customer centric, right?
Huh. Kind of like Disney.
Yeah, well, that's where it comes from. Is the tourism industry. How do you bring a workforce together quickly? Well, start with putting a name tag on them. And I feel like if you think about it, a lot of these publicly funded organizations seem to have lost touch with who they're supposed to be serving. They all, like
Mhm.
you said it yourself. They're chasing their next career promotion, and it's like, well, what does that have to do with serving the community?
And yeah, I think there's lots to draw on from Disney in terms of their client experience.
Well,
Customer,
and just
not customer experience, and just every employee is empowered to, or
yeah,
incentivized, empowered, required to fix anything they see. A kid drops ice cream, it gets cleaned up immediately. Anything's out of place, all employees are required to report it and not just be passive about it, which has given it its reputation. The place runs like a clock. It's such a fun experiment to go to Disney and just be a spectator.
watch. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I that's my current hypothesis is the gap widened to the point where they don't even know who they're serving anymore, and how do you bring that back? And it could be as simple as starting with it, forcing people to wear a name tag. It's like, oh, yeah, there's a lot of course correction that's required after years of runaway unsupervised behaviors.
Complacency. And
Well,
one of my housemates on this trip actually, this was a big part of the discussion of that differentiation between your run-of-the-mill company and other companies and the top performers, especially in hospitality, because the margins can be so thin. And we're talking about Ritz-Carlton, I believe, where every employee is authorized to or has the authority to make a two up to $2,000 improvement. And one of the examples was a business person who had left something in their safe in the room. It was a PowerPoint presentation on a memory stick, and they had to fly. They had already left and flown from California to Hawaii to present, and FedEx couldn't get this over to them in time. So
it
the
needed to go
owner,
on a seat on a plane.
yes, that's exactly it. That employee took it personally, flew out there and delivered it to the client.
That is a client that will be loyal to the end of time.
Forever. Exactly. And the principles of marketing, looking at cost of acquisition and lifetime value, which is getting harder and harder in terms of bringing someone on board. How do you give them value? And this is a big piece of what I've been looking at and thinking through, because I don't want things to be transactional. I want it to be partnership, working together with companies for commercialization, to mitigate risk, to find capital or lending partners, to get out there for creating economic sovereignty and growth and benefits in Canada, where I just look at, um, I won't get into it now. I wanted to talk about this with Kathleen, was the Build Homes Canada initiative.
Oh yeah, what do you think of that?
Okay, let me tell you, that's just secondary housing minister. We were just too siloed and fractured. The existing organizations at the federal level, let alone inter between the feds and provinces and territories, can't work together in terms of getting that money out the door. The problem's not throwing money and bringing more solutions to the market. It's about reducing the barriers to entry and the red tape to create housing supply. And I call this 8 months ago, um, for our prime minister's interests in Brookfield, which had bought a company called Modular. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
and
People aren't impressed with that, are they?
no, no, and not surprising. So it's just not, we're not thinking the right way. We're reinventing the wheel as opposed to optimizing what exists and looking at where the resistance is. So to me, that's where I think if we lean into reducing barriers to entry, the fees, I think we're on the right path when we started looking at taking away the requirements for a site plan and development costs for creating units under 10 or dwellings under 10 units. That was a good move. And any compensation going back to the municipalities from the feds to the province, that's a good model. But doing something that benefits certain parties is not the right way to go. We have to look at how to democratize the benefit and the access to market, to build, to increase supply, because we need about 500,000 new homes every year for the next 10 years to catch up, to meet demand. And we're heading towards 100 million, a population of 100 million in 75 years. So this isn't it's not a band-aid solution. We need to do something that is a long-term solution.
We need to think in systems. We really do, because it is multi-layered and interconnected for sure. So what I think is really interesting, actually, there was a meeting last night with the Liberals in their finance plan, but budgeting plan. But no, the thing that needs to happen is to find a better way to work together, quite frankly, because the feds are just through the way our government works. The feds, focus on certain things. Notice that they're focused on their own property, right?
Yes.
Because it's actually the province that sets all of the rules around everything else. And then, to some extent, allows municipalities to do certain things. So, unless, everyone comes together and says, hey, you know what? We're not at odds here. We all are focused on the same end result. So let's work together. But the other big change going on right now is actually the modernization, industrialization, if you will, of construction. That's only been going on for like 6 decades, but it's really time to move it to the next level because we can't we have to get out of our craftsman thinking brain. We really do. And my husband is a journeyman carpenter and a good craftsman. But no, we really need to think about industrializing buildings. And, spending time as I have up north, the only way that we can actually improve housing there, and there's a huge need, is to figure out how to build things in a factory, package it on a ship, and unfold it on site because there isn't really the capability in northern places for putting these things together or building them from scratch. So, and those are just a couple of observations.
I definitely think for outlying communities or the north that that's needed to speed it up, to have something that's better built where you're not getting the labor supply. People don't want to go there. You don't have the skilled labor to be able to build it.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
and in other more densely populated temperate areas, I think, what do you think about that, Kathleen? Maybe I'll just ask you. How do you
Well,
see?
if we take another viewpoint, which we should, because there are at least 10 different influences on this. If we start thinking about, which we always should, about the environment and how much waste is inherently involved in stick building on site, it's huge.
15%, I think, of all material is the rough number I have in my head.
Well, there's certainly considerable material wastage, but there's also what do you do? What do you do with it? Where do you put it? Right? And so it just, accelerates from there. So I think that building better everywhere means that we need to think about industrializing this process. If we built vehicles in our garage, what would that look like? Right? And certainly in a factory, it doesn't mean that everything needs to look the same, unlike today's vehicles that are white, black, and gray. But it's amazing what can happen in an industrial environment for providing all kinds of options and different amenities and still be incredibly efficient. Like if we started to just build washroom pods, there'd be a dozen different pods, and then you could add a couple of them together if you wanted a larger solution, or build well, they already do kitchen pods. There's all kinds of different solutions. We just have to reimagine. And I'm talking about this from an architectural point of view. Like there's endless options. But the tools of actually producing it are there's different themes of that too. You need computerized equipment that can cut, but you also have to think about combining materials and what they look like and what they need to also do. So possibilities are endless. It's kind of interesting because I'm still writing this because I'm not sure just how deeply I should get, but we mentioned corruption a while ago. And so the story that I'm going to tell, and I am going to post on LinkedIn, actually has to do with a millwork business, and it was 1998, so I can tell this story. It's been a while, and it was an incredibly efficient, well-respected business, and delivering great product. But some young dude decided that he was gonna, I don't even know where he got his money from. But anyway, he bought up this company along with about 10 others and ultimately declared bankruptcy. So there was a lot of fraud involved. It took a number of years, and but he was charged and convicted and yada yada yada. But I'll tell the story. So this has been going on for some time, and but the beauty of millwork, it's on a smaller scale. They were doing cabinets and so on for schools and hospitals and even casinos, actually. That's part of the story. And so it's been around for a long time, and it can work. And actually, my job there, I was a project manager, one of four, and we were seeing projects through from the contract right through to delivery and installation. So production meetings every week, looking at what's going on in the shop, what's actually where it sits in terms of online completion, production, and so on. So, but that was such a great experience. I mean, working in that millwork plant for thinking about industrialized building,
Okay.
whether it's housing or anything else. So, but anyway, they charged the guy. And, uh, I think he was ultimately fined $1 million, but he was also you know convicted to 2 years in prison. So big story.
Ah,
But so here's the thing, and that's the point I want to make when I write this up for LinkedIn is you have to consider risk, and it's not just how your business runs, it's who runs your business too. And what do they bring to it other than just a braggart and money. I still don't know where he got his money from. That part of the investigation, this took 12 years to conclude also.
jeez.
Isn't that amazing?
Why did it take so long?
Well, part of the story was that he was consumed, I think, by the whole gambling thing, and he ended up robbing the company to set up a casino in Jamaica. And they actually needed to extradite him from Jamaica to to deal with him in court here in Canada. And well, yeah, there's a bit more to it. But
Okay. Well, yeah, look forward to the storytelling and the post you make.
well, I know the names, and that's all public information. It's in court documents and so on and so forth. But the other thing that really is concerning, and I'm going to link it to this too, that governments have funds to help innovation and businesses and so on. This is in Manitoba. And so the Manitoba government, actually, this is in 1998, actually, probably before, because this company had been going for a bit, but they gave them $7 million. At that time, that was big money. And of course, lost it. So I'm not sure what mechanism they had to make decisions about who to give money to. But just in the news recently, uh, this company, I think it was a Swiss company, Solantis or whatever, pulled shutting down operations in Quebec.
Hmm.
And Quebec gave them $200 million and are
Yes.
trying to figure out how to recoup that or portions of it. So the reason I want to introduce risk into this is that it needs to be very, very big in your viewing of risk, including the government. Like, I
Of
don't know
course.
what their system is, but there needs to be a lot more than just enthusiasm for an
No,
idea.
that's it. I lead with risk. I think that's the largest overlooked aspect in everything. And
Sure.
being able to play that out in the short, medium, long run, and if it's working with the government, what if that grant dries up? There's I have an infinite amount of things to say about risk and risk management and how to plan that out and how to make it as simple as possible and implement it into your change management process and escalation processes. So you've got timely turnover or timely reactions to
Yeah, and there's different levels too. And I think that where teams really come into play because you have different viewpoints, and that allows you to recognize risk at different levels. And that is, I mean, that's really something that folks would get value out of from engaging your company, just to have that different viewpoint too, right? So,
thank you. Yes, and I think we've all spoken about it, Peter and I, at depth of collapsing the hierarchy, and the more interaction, feedback you get from the people that are client facing, the faster your organization will improve because you're getting the information, that the intelligence on the ground or on the factory floor of what needs to change by the people who are doing the work. That's It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. And looking at studies done on change management and lessons learned, the best example that came up was the effectiveness of military messes, informal
mm,
conversation versus formal tracking and
yeah.
weekly, monthly meetings and risk registers and all that happy shit is just burdensome. Best change. It may not get it all, but it'll all come out in the end because it all comes up to the top. Informal conversations, open informal conversation, that segregation in hierarchy or rank, the junior ranks, senior ranks, junior officers, senior officers, having those conversations and being able to vent and complain and come up with fixes in real time has been proven to be the most effective way for change management.
Oh yeah, for sure. One of the beautiful things at this company as well, which was stellar, and it was put together long before this dude bought it out. But those production meetings were very, very great because the project managers, of course, were in there, but so was the guy who bought the materials. We also had representation from our detailers, right? And the sales guys were in there too. So we had a full round table, and it was round actually, of input at different stages of production, including sales and then installs, deliveries, and so on. So I think it was very well organized. It was very effective, efficient, and then this dude killed it. What
And
was
what are you
that?
doing with it now? What are the projects you're working on now? And with who and where? I'm really
Well,
curious because I don't think we've ever gotten into the details of
it's
the
actually been housing and continues to be, and that has been such a journey, which is somewhat ironic because I have spent a good deal of my career in government, but not to this level of municipal government, I guess. And the processes that are um, used to get to some level of approval for housing projects, it's mind-boggling. It's so ridiculous that I sputter to even think about it. But there is such a lack of collaboration province has a big role to play as well in this. But the linear process they go through in dealing with development proposals to get things done just blew me away. And we have a planner on our team,
okay.
and still that it's it's uh it's more convoluted, and like that level of government needs to be thoroughly disrupted. And
I've lived this, Kathleen. If you Google me, stuff like this may show up in terms of challenges I've had with small towns and
yeah,
the incurred expenses from holding cost delays, the city changing its mind on the requirements at
yeah,
once, conservation authorities changing its mind, planners not having bylaws that
yeah.
stipulate certain conditions, having to get
No,
that
actually,
drafted.
it's even it's having storage closets full of bylaws that no one even knows about anymore, and they
Yes.
conflict, and they can't access them. So I'm talking to someone in the next week who is a former planner as well, and talking about using AI to firstly feed all of this policy, if they can find it, into the system, and then command it to surface clashes, because there's all kinds of clashes. Policies clash with each other, and they have such a hard time, for some reason, I don't know, getting rid of old policies that no longer
Mhm.
apply. I mean, they date back to the 1900s, for heaven's sakes. What's the point? So the organizing of information and the documents and so on is a huge part of being more successful in dealing with decisions, including zoning, housing, and so on. So, and the other thing that I'm going to dive a lot deeper into is how are these communities using their official community plan, right? And that is where all of the public input should be invited, not on separate projects, but the big picture, because everything interrelates. So that would really, really curb the enthusiasm of, or at least channel it, of certain NIMBYs, so that they actually could see the bigger picture.
Yes. I think you just nailed that's it. Yes, that is everything condensed into a single solution, especially if you had planned milestones and targets in terms of this is the process you come in, here's the plan, or this is the review process. It goes here, it goes to
Yeah.
the planning committee, it goes here, permits and so forth.
And this is the zoning, and
Yeah.
and stop negotiating zoning, for heaven's sakes, for every project. It's insane. Like they get to, well, this is the zoning, and then they do up proposals, and so that's a lot of time input. And then they get to negotiate on increasing the zoning, and no, that's not good.
No, and the time wasted, and I don't think any committee member is actually, or the city clerk or the mayor is actually, or the CAO actually is looking at the unit cost or hourly
No,
cost to run all these committees because I've lived this. I know the pain. I know the NIMBYs and how they have
yeah,
friends on different committees and just stall. And
yeah,
it's just for the lack of progress when it doesn't make sense because it's in line with their strategic plan and the outcomes they want and the priorities. And
yeah.
yeah, that sounds like a really good offer. You just spelled out what's needed. And if that is not something you're considering to propose to municipalities to
Oh, yes, it is for sure. But I'm also involving the provincial government, because this is the other uh, nonsense of being so segregated, is this whole environmental thing. Like everybody is, quite frankly, interested in this at different levels. But the Department of Environment, and I'm talking about BC right now because that's where I am, is so insulated from participating in this planning that they come in after the fact and then do an environmental whatever. It's not even a review. That would be too generous. But they don't know anything about construction. They don't understand that when roads are built, the environment surface is changed, right? So I have been witness to some of the most bizarre stuff coming from the Department of Environment that would suggest that they were about 3 years old and didn't know anything. about anything. And it's time to change that because this has to be a combined effort. You can't, it's not linear. It cannot be linear. It has to be circular and involved, right?
I absolutely agree.
So I wanted to add something more to your comments and discussions about post-secondary. So one of the things that, and I may have mentioned this earlier, but so I've been talking to a number of people involved with post-secondary, and then looking at housing as a continuum. So the focus has been on what, young families and so on, but housing has to be available for every generation. So right now, suburbia, and I'm not necessarily a proponent of that, but suburbia is occupied by boomers, aging boomers. And as they age, then there's the whole issue of space that they no longer need in these houses. There may be an issue of driving because to get where they need to go is driving. So there needs to be different types of housing in different areas to address changing needs as in different demographics. So I was suggesting and having this conversation with some folks about, well, why don't post-secondary use some of their campuses to build housing for retirees? Because a lot, and then Toronto Star ran a story about some of these folks that started a degree before they had kids and now are going back to college or university in their 60s, I guess, or whatever, 50s, 70s, and finish their degree. So, but if, and post-secondary, having no longer the income from foreign students, need to be looking at different business models, right? So if they decided to build and rent housing for an older generation, they would also then fill up some classes, I'm sure. Plus, that would really encourage this intergenerational interaction, which I think is huge. And it would allow then that, the amenities that go with living in a community, like restaurants and bowling alleys or whatever, I don't know, games and all of that becomes part of this offering to multi-generations. So that campuses really did become a community, but not just for, you know, youngsters entering their first year of post-secondary learning, right? That it becomes a community. So, and it was then, so started talking about uh, campus master planning, which really fits into this. And there's a dearth of campus master planning and a capture of all of the data of physical assets and the state of them and so on. So you can see all the interconnections here. And that's a huge part of my involvement with IFMA, International Facility Management Association, right? So
Okay.
anyway,
Yes, I think all these institutions need to look at new revenue sources. I absolutely love the idea of where we have more integration of different generations
yeah.
because our lack of participation in houses worship have killed that, as have multi-generational homes, and the transfer of values from generation to generation is a huge detriment to society. And any way to look at how to improve that is great. It increases density in already dense areas, though, as I'm just thinking out loud, the noise concerns of living on a campus.
Well, some of those boomers can get really loud. That's true.
Out of control, absolutely out of control.
Well, you know what? It is actually about focusing on community and in different locations for sure, and different types of communities perhaps, but community is. It's a whole range of people, ages, interests, activities, all of that. And I think that we need to rebuild that, you know.
I agree. And just thinking it through in terms of walkability and aging healthier is the benefits to just having the proximity to everything to get out and move would create a lot of benefits for many people. I'd love to see a pilot on that.
Well, it's another thing that's of interest, and likely because, I have an aging mother. But so if we had this housing on campus, then we had programs on campus like nursing, like research in this or that or whatnot, which should also be happening. Then there would be an opportunity, and don't take this the wrong way, but there would be an opportunity for participation of folks in some of these programs
My
too.
dad's in a study at the University of Ottawa today, just because he's bored and
He's got lots of
signs up
energy.
for these things. And as you got to meet him, I'm sure that you can understand
He's
some.
got energy.
He does. He sure does.
So anyway, that's kind of what has been occupying a lot of my time right now is just helping connect the dots, but turning this into a visual, a systems visual, because it's not linear. We have to stop this linear thinking.
No, it's not. And I love these conversations and just my vast network and even when watching and listening Peter speak to somebody who all of a sudden is just quoting this fund, this study, this individual, this theory or body of knowledge, and then connects them. I am connected with a doctor. So in Ottawa, the Civic Hospital, which is where the Ottawa Heart Institute is being redeveloped on a mass scale. Lots of thought and input is being put into it. And I don't know if they're what stage of design they're at, but there is a really awesome doctor who is originally from Alberta, I believe, but I want to connect him with you, Kathleen, because I think he would really get a kick out of your idea. And he practices holistic care and
Oh, right.
he's driven to just help people be healthier by living properly, living better. And he's involved, he's part of the board for the new civic hospital.
Cool.
And I think your idea just has so much merit, and he might be the right person to plug into to share that.
Well, curiously enough, I've actually been following, and I might have mentioned this earlier, but I've been following healthcare service redesign or a lot of the effort around that, mainly with National Health Services in the UK, but it's reconsidering how healthcare is organized, delivered, and so on. And that makes perfect sense because we are at this juncture in the world where old patterns just don't serve anymore. And I find healthcare so interesting because not only is it so people interactive, and it needs to be more people interactive,
Yes,
but it combines business and it combines the physicality of location, buildings, and services within buildings that can actually help address the whole health dilemma, right?
agreed.
So I actually spent some time chatting with a faculty member at Oxford University and very much into systems thinking. And so we chatted for about an hour and a half on how we might be able to further, the use of this kind of thinking. So curiously, she does some sketches around systems interacting, which is great. You know what? More of our conversations need to be graphic, right? They need to be visual. So, I mean, forever we've used whiteboards and post-it notes, but and I think I mentioned earlier, I'm fiddling with a couple of different software systems to actually provide, a visual of connections between different aspects of service delivery, or even in between, and connecting different types of services together, right? So anyway, that's where I've been spending a lot of my time, just trying to find um, more understandable ways to actually present these ideas to folks so that they can weigh in on it and see the value of interconnections.
Yeah, and I'm very visual, so that resonates with me. But I think, well, picture just says 1,000 words. You can just
Yeah,
summarize so
yeah,
much.
exactly.
Whether it's a stakeholder map or a process map or just bullets with a picture of the outcomes or benefits or the problem statement.
And if you actually like, so that 3D it now, but if you tie a thread to each one of these items, and then you start moving one, and then you can see how the thread around all these other things starts shifting as well. And I think, for no other reason than just to allow people to see the interconnectivity between all of these different things, so that when making a decision over here has impact on
Yes,
all of these other areas, right? So,
as it does, right? Nothing happens in isolation.
no,
It's always which is part of what I had to map out, because every time I thought of this leads to this, to that, oh, that impacts this other thing. So I need to finish this before this, because I also don't want to push out anything that's half baked and care about the quality and standards I perform at professionally. So
yeah.
it all has a ripple. I really want to see you move into that solutions with municipalities, because I think there are so many people that would benefit everybody. It is such a frustrating process, and there's so
Everyone would
many
benefit,
people.
yes.
Yes, and
Including the folks that work there, and I don't know that they actually realize that. Whether they're, because I have been in the public service, as have you, and we know the lethargy that, that exists there, and the siloed thinking and reacting and so on. So this would challenge that on so many levels, and it
yes,
would, but I want it needs to be challenged, but I want it to be an invitation as opposed to a kick in the pants. So it's more positive. Like, how about we do this? Because this would really improve this, and this in your world. That kind of an invitation to change things.
I definitely see a path, and I see the right carrots starting to just brew around in my mind in terms of how to make that happen and how to present that to the different municipalities and who to present it to be able to gain that, along with what evidence you use to motivate the conversation and even create the competition between municipalities. So let me support
Well,
you on
we've
this.
actually been dealing with probably the most time we've spent with the North Van folks. It's very political there.
Oh, I was
And
going to say you're going for a very that's you're I picked something more.
no, but that's just where the property was. So that's what led us there. However, I'm much more likely to delve into possibilities with the town of Kelowna, because I've spoken with the CAO there, very forward thinking, very um, I think a good person to deal with. Their planning department is a lot more advanced and open, so I'm going to be test driving some conversations with them about how to do this. But I'm also speaking to this planner, as I mentioned, that she's got her own consulting business now, but and I think she might have actually been in North Van, so. At any rate, I need to have input from, her own experience on the ground intertwined with this, just to see if I've spied everything or if I'm missing some parts to it, right? So anyway,
I I'd recommend going out to a few municipalities and um identifying what the challenges they're facing, because the faster these things move, the more revenue they get from all the charges, the fees, the increased property footprint and requirements, and therefore property taxes. So the value proposition is really strong. Everyone's screaming for revenue and infrastructure renewal, which we've spoken about
yeah.
before.
Well,
And
that's really why I want to and why I connected with Carney's government right now too, is there's a huge infrastructure deficit. And it's that classic, it's out of sight and out of mind.
that's it.
And political terms are too short relative to
You don't
thinking
want to
about
spend that. They'll do the patchwork. We need
if they even think of that. And so the other thing that I've noticed, unfortunately, it boggles my mind, but nonetheless, I've lived this for a while. They don't even have good documentation
no,
on
that's
their
great.
systems,
Yes.
right?
Shared.
So we're, part of the proposal is, okay, how do you use technology to update your records? Because if you don't have records, you're going to be blindsided. It's going to cost you a fortune. And it might be in your term, Mr. Mayor, and you're going to get kicked out of office because of this, which, you know, specific to your term has nothing to do with it, but it's the whole system that needs to change, right? So,
Yeah. Um, and even thinking of, give me a second. I just have to make a note to thinking of the Municipal Infrastructure Investment Fund.
yes. So development charges, I really do not believe are the route to investing or putting together a bank account for infrastructure, because all of that gets pushed right on either the purchaser or the renter of the unit. And that certainly isn't, there's no balance there.
Yeah.
Plus, I mean, it creates a huge upfront cost, and a development may never happen. Now, just so you know, I'm also not a proponent of commoditizing housing. We spoke a bit before about private equity,
Hmm.
which there has to, and right back to the federal government, they have to do policy to change this shareholder supremacy, because that is killing the economy for the majority of people. So
I
that's my politics.
I agree on both statements. The development charges drive up the inflation of housing and
Totally, yes.
rental prices, and I'm surprised that's not being discussed in terms of unaffordability. We're not looking at what's glaringly facing us and evidence-based challenges of what's wrong and just coming up with new bad ideas.
Well,
Um,
actually, it has been discussed, but what I'm really promoting is, let's not get into a blame game. There are at least 10 to 12 things that are affecting this. So we need to sit in the same room around a circular table, and we need to collectively at the same time solve this and come up with answers. Because if we're just continuing the blame game, nothing will get solved at all. And so that includes, we need some bankers sitting around the table, and the rates just dropped today. But nonetheless, we have an issue in this country with our financial systems too. So at least from my explorations into this, this is a huge negative impact, to tell you the
I
truth.
agree. And I've got to run, but I do want to leave you with a thought of considering um strongly consider taking your idea to a handful of municipalities that are not as NIMBY charged as North Vancouver, so Kelowna and
Yeah.
surrounding regions. And I like the idea of sistering, neighboring municipalities because then they can work together to then demonstrate to the rest of Canada this is what we've tried, and these are the outcomes we created in condensing those timelines, making it concurrent versus linear, and even if then the AI analysis, that is not hard. There is
So
to lay that out, to look at the conflicts.
it could happen in a nanosecond. It's just feeding the information into it, but
With the
and
right,
even if it's hard copy, I mean, there's ways to feed that into a digitized environment. So, but
that's
it's I'm actually hoping for a an organization that wants to do this and that they can set the example, the positive example. So,
well, why don't we, if that doesn't exist, let's create it.
yeah,
I've got the AI expertise. I think between you, Peter, and I, this is something that can serve a lot of people, and it's not complicated, and
yeah.
understanding the stakeholders and being able to really just go at this and talk about what value we're bringing, and the fee structure and what it'll save the municipalities, because this would be the starting point to doing something more meaningful than pumping $13 billion into a new federal organization with
Yeah.
more hierarchy and process and red tape and favoring very few as opposed to providing value to all Canadians.
You know what? Think on that because as you were talking, this thought just shot through my mind. I was working for the Alberta government at the time, and there this was just when, I don't know, technology was coming into play, but their file system was insane. They thought it was quite organized, but it was insane. And they had just hired one of my former classmates from my MBA class, who was had a technology company, to come in and digitize the whole damn thing. So how about that? It's
Hmm.
time for another iteration of digitizing in another area too.
Yes, absolutely. And the OCR scanning on AI now, you can take pictures of it and it's able to do it. It's not hard. And then to be able to just have that in text, to be able to do the analysis of overlaps, to identify it, the pain in the butt will be going through rewriting or consolidating the new bylaw process and doing the
But
consultations.
even that digitized, I think, could be done in a nanosecond. Like what drives me nuts about municipalities and cities, council meetings, they have thousands of pages of agenda. That's ridiculous. There has to be a better way. Like no one, really no one is able to deal with that. So they don't. So why bother? Like there has to be a better way to deal with the issues at hand, the proposals, whatever, all of this, other than thousands of pages of agenda.
Which they print off for all their elderly or print preferred citizens who attend in person. I,
Well,
I've
it's
attended some meetings and they're handing out stacks of paper as you walk in.
yeah.
It's wasteful.
Oh well, it's just a way to get around dealing with things. But it dates back to the time when it was a quill pen and a jar of ink. We have to advance the way we do things there.
Yeah. I think that's a fight or a battle for another day. I really think looking at focusing on
Incremental improvements, yeah.
yeah, especially for housing, speed up
Yes.
the process, the value proposition to the communities and its citizens, not a hard piece, and then leaning into creating the carrots with the province to the municipalities and playing municipalities off of each other to say, hey, they're doing it. Why aren't you doing it?
Yeah, some competitive advantage.
Always.
Yeah.
Everyone's competitive. Everyone at a certain level there's a strong degree of competitiveness in them, or otherwise they wouldn't take on the risk and responsibility of being
Absolutely.
CAO or a mayor or a council member. So let's play the psychology.
The positive psychology. Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to run. I'm going to introduce you to Dr. Quadro. I've forgotten his last name. And then let's talk about what this could look like. And to Peter, I need kicks in my ass by the end of this month if I don't get the things I've said I'm going to get to you and share. So then we can
Crack the whip, feel the whip.
Yeah, I need that accountability because that's what I have with others. I don't seem to have
Yeah.
it with us. So,
You need coaching.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah. With someone who's actually got skin in the game to some degree compared to my other coach who's just there without any real skin in the game.
That's right. Yeah. Well, we're here to help you. Don't work in a bubble.
Okay, thank you guys. Have a great day. I'll see you next week.
Great conversations, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.